Hey, fellow junior Egyptologists, welcome back to Doodling with Purpose as we continue our week-to-week lessons in hieroglyphics. So first off, let's look at last week's homework, and as always, the steps are to first write out all of the glyphs yourself, because writing and doodling the glyphs is probably the most important core part of learning hieroglyphics, because, it's not exactly English, and you have to learn how to draw all of these different symbols. And then once we've drawn all of them, the next step is we're going to transliterate them, meaning writing the sounds that each of them make, noting which ones are determinatives, which ones are letters, and for those that are letters, noting the specific accent marks that show how to pronounce them. All right, so once we've done all this, now we can go from transliterating to translating. And that first word, the IW, as we know, means someone in the past did something. It's our clue that we're going into the past tense. And then that's followed up by our very first verb. And in this case, it's a verb from last week's lesson, which is weary. We have the double shoot, then the water sign, and the papyrus with the person. Now, the N mark then makes it from weary to was weary, or wearied, I suppose one could say, was wearied. And then that N mark that changes that, the water sign, which is kind of like adding an ED, followed by S for she, and then the owl, which can be from, as, with, or in, depending on the usage. We're going to use context clues. This is going to be followed up by the verb to see. Now, to see here is actually in a very specific form because we see the double A sound, which puts this as a person who sees. So we're not just saying it's seeing, but we're actually describing it becomes a noun, a person who does the seeing. What are they seeing? Well, the first thing they're seeing is a house. And we've got the PR followed by the stroke line, followed by the pronoun she. So it becomes her house or she house, but it's her house. All right. After this, we have the verb burn at the bottom left. We remember the determinative for things on fire. And then the word every day, or in Egyptian word order, day every. So everything comes out to someone in the past did something. Well, she was weary of seeing her house burn every day. Yeah, I get pretty sick of seeing that too. Someone get the Egyptian fire department on the line. And remember, word order, different from English. All right, let's move on to some bilateral glyphs this week. We've seen this one before. This is the basket or the jar. It is a circle with a little triangle with a line across. It's NW. It can also be IN. How do you know? Well, again, context clues. It's very much like in English. We have some letters that have multiple sounds, like C. The letter C can either be a hard K or it can be an S. How do we know which? Practice, practice, practice. So it's like cafe versus city. It's not Safe or kitty. It's city. So we know that just from practice. We also remember that the NW sound is a complement to the ND sound or NJ sound because D with the dash is a J. And this is sort of like QU in English, how you just sort of ignore the U. It's just there as a helper sound to remind you. All helpers in hieroglyphics are welcome because believe me, anything that can help decipher these is a joy, since we're learning an entirely different language. Now, as far as how to draw this, pretty simple. I mean, you're going to be drawing a circle, and if you've graduated kindergarten, like I know I have, circles are pretty easy. That's going to be followed by two diagonal lines up, and then you're going to cross off at the top to finish off the basket or jar, if you will. So relatively easy one to draw. Really, the trick is just knowing what sound it makes or whether or not you're ignoring it if it's following the ND staff sound. So once you've got that through, you'll also see that this is one of those glyphs that shows up in odd ways. It doesn't really start a lot of words. So this word, nuwa, with the determinative for sky and then the triple water sound, this is the word for primal waters, as in like, way back when in the Jurassic or the Cretaceous or, any of those ish timelines when you had, giant sea monsters that actually were monsters. Primal waters. All right. Next up, we have a repetition of the jar 3 times. This is important because it's a word, or rather a phrase that comes up quite a bit. It can be pronounced either NW or NWY, nui, because the Y can be used as a plural, just like a W can. This is a phrase that can mean 2 things. It can either mean at the end of the world, like the end of all things, or in the name of, like in the name of Pharaoh, or in the name of Spider-Man. I don't know, whoever you're following and doing things in the name of. You'll notice that this glyph shows up a lot, even on Moon Knight's costume. So if you zoom in on live-action Disney Plus Moon Knight, you can see the first glyph on the right side there is the triple basket, which means in the name of, or in the end of the world. All right, now we've got the pintail duck flying. The pintail duck shows up in quite a few glyphs, 3 in fact, sitting, standing, and flying. When it's flying, it's pronounced pa'a, or pa'a with sort of what looks like a 3, but that's really the A sign as we've been over. Now drawing it is pretty simple. You're going to do 2 curved line downs, making sure they cross at the end to show the pintail of said pintail duck. Then we'll do a line up for the neck. We'll give him a head, we'll give him a beak, and the legs are, I call them sort of Harry Potter lightning marks, because you sort of draw a jagged lightning line down for both of the legs. And then, of course, the feathers or the wings are just one upward wing and one downward wing that are added on to either side. So you're basically cobbling together the pintail duck from wings, body, head, and feet. Put it all together, and you have Pa, the wingtail duck. So here it is used in a word. So we have the wingtail duck, followed by the vulture, followed by a sign you've never seen before, which we all know that means it's what? A determinative. Yes, signs you've never seen before at the end of a word are always determinatives. And this is a wing, a feathered wing. It's actually more of like a plain wing for things that Egyptians saw flying. What could those be? I don't know. Ask the aliens. So here we have pa'a followed by ah, so that's a echo sound. We're not going to need to pronounce a single sound following a bilateral. That's the word to fly, which is ironic since it's using a flying bird as one of the glyphs. All right, going from flying to sitting, this is the back end of a lion, as in like, a lion's butt. All right, it's the sound puh, puh. And remember the H with the dot is like hiss, hiss in the back of the throat. So puh, puh. You're going to have that back of the throat H sound. Pretty easy to draw as long as you know where to start from. And as usual, with all animals, you're starting under the neck, even though there's no head. So you're going to draw the line up. You're going to do a little rounded sort of half bulb for the top, round down. And then we're going to do a straight line forward that will make up the legs of the sitting butt end of a lion. Curve that around to have the front paws. And then finally, we're going to add the tail at the very end, which is simply a curved line up. Again, not a difficult one to draw as long as you know where to start your pen, if you will, where the stroke lines need to begin. And we know this from studying glyphs on walls and papyrus. All right, so here we have a word starting with the lion rear end, P, followed by a W, followed by the water sign, followed by the roadway sign with water signs in it, which is interesting. So we've got 2 determinatives here. How do you know they're determinatives? Well, they're at the end of the word, and the more you use it, the more you'll start to recognize these. So this is pronounced pua, pua, P-H-W, and it's the word for marshlands. So you have the word for a roadway or a land that's covered in water, reinforced by the triple water sign. So it's a land covered in water, marshlands, which they had quite a lot in the Delta. Here's another word starting with the end of the lion. So we have p, followed by the loaf T, followed by 2 diagonal strokes, which is a alternative Y, followed by a determinative of 2 lion heads that kind of look like they're on a popsicle stick. This is the word strength, pronounced pati, pati, like party, pati. We have strength in our party. I don't know, maybe. All right, here's an interesting one where we have the PH sound that is closed in by 2 single sounds, an A, P, and an H, surrounding the PH, followed by the determinative for walking. We've seen this one, or moving. The legs in the triangle form like that. You'll see this determinative anytime it's about movement. So with the P and the H sound boxing in the PH sound, we know that these are sound complements, echo sounds that can be canceled out. So all of these glyphs together are just going to make up P, P. And this is the verb to reach or to attack. It can mean both things. Hey, why can't things mean 2 things, right? Like double guitars or the thing longer. It can do more than one thing. All right, so with that in mind, let's look at next week's homework. So you're going to want to copy this down, translate it, transliterate it. work on your glyphs, and we'll come back next week to talk about its super awesome, cool, funny, hidden meaning, which probably isn't that hidden to you anymore, because you've been doodling with purpose for 139 episodes. Thanks for joining, as always. If you enjoyed this, please leave a comment. Pass it along to others. It's the best way to show support for this channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for more doodling. What is it? With purpose.